Welcome back to our channel. In the dim hours before dawn on a rain-slick October morning in 1955, the Philadelphia Mint's cavernous coin room thrummed like an iron heart. Copper P. Levittown houses rose on former farmland, teenagers bopped to rock and roll, and pocket change slipped easily through jukebox slots. Outwardly everything ran to schedule, yet that night an unnoticed misstep threaded chaos into routine. A single working die, destined to strike 1 cent pieces bearing Abraham Lincoln's profile, received its second hub impression a fraction off alignment. The steel surface recorded 2 overlapping images: the date, the maxim "In God We Trust," and the word liberty, all lay doubled, skewed by the width of a pencil line. No alarm sounded. The die passed inspection, was hardened, and mounted in press number 44 by a sleepy technician who simply tightened the bolts and moved on. Hours later, dressed in brown coveralls, Catherine Bell, the Mint's only female night shift inspector, noticed faint halos around the date on a handful of cents. The planchets were still hot from striking, so ghosting often occurred. She shrugged, brushed a curl from her eyes, and tossed the coins into a hopper marked accepted. By mid-shift, thousands more error cents had joined them, indistinguishable in coppery sea. When sunrise melted through high windows, press operators clocked out, the day crew arrived, and pallets of bagged pennies headed to armored trucks bound for Federal Reserve branches in New York and Boston. There was no memo, no reprimand, only a silent promise that something extraordinary now jingled among the ordinary. 3 years passed before anyone cared. In July 1958, on the outskirts of Springfield, Massachusetts, a young line cook named Jerry Atkins sat at the back booth of the Dixie Diner counting tips from his evening shift. He flattened a stack of pennies across Formica, intending to roll them and exchange for quarters. One coin refused to lie flat. Its date shimmered strangely. He thumbed it closer to the neon sign above the pie case and felt a jolt, almost dizziness. The whole obverse looked doubled, as if 2 shadows clung to every letter. Jerry was no numismatist. His entire coin knowledge came from folding change into cigarette packs. Yet instinct insisted this set was wrong in a way that mattered. He carried it home wrapped inside a matchbook. For days, Jerry studied it beneath the only magnifying glass he owned, hoping for explanation. Weeks crawled by until an envelope returned bearing the editor's terse reply. Possible double die, highly unusual. Consider professional authentication. Jerry's pulse thundered. Professional? Authentication? Such words felt worlds away from grill grease and night shifts, but curiosity outweighed common sense. He packed the coin inside a sock, buried it under clothes in a shoebox, and walked the 10 blocks to Frankel's Jewelry and Loan, where, rumor claimed, an old man could evaluate coins for a modest fee. Meyer Frankel stooped, silver-haired, glasses thick as bottle bottoms, peered at the penny beneath a stereo microscope. He uttered a quiet whistle, then another. When he finally glanced up, his eyes glimmered like polished onyx. "Young man," he said, "either you're exceptionally lucky or the Mint's quality control took a holiday in 1955. He explained what a double die obverse entailed, how the die itself, not the coin, bore duplicated images, and how such errors, when dramatic, skyrocketed in desire. He cited the famed 1937 D 3-legged buffalo nickel and the 1942/1 Mercury dime. Then he offered Jerry $50 on the spot. A week's wages for a penny. Jerry's knees nearly buckled, yet instinct whispered again, "Wait." He thanked Meyer, pocketed the cent, and stepped into August sunlight with his heart galloping. Word spread along hazy channels: coin clubs, barbershop gossip, whispered rumors at Saturday swap meets. People began checking their change, holding pennies to porch lights, seeking doubled letters visible even to untrained eyes. By early 1959, dealers confirmed multiple examples centered in New England, reinforcing the belief that most had left the Mint in one shipment through the Boston Federal Reserve. Estimates varied: 20,000, 24. None agreed, but consensus grew that surviving high-grade pieces were far scarcer. Prices climbed. $5 for a VS specimen, $20 for an AU, ridiculous sums whispered for any brilliant red gem. Jerry watched the frenzy from a respectful distance. His single set now graded $55 by the fledgling annex service sat locked inside an enamel breadbox behind canned tomatoes. Offers arrived, $60, $80, then $100 plus $2 silver sweetener. Each time Jerry paused, thought of rent, but held back, sensing the story still unfolding. The plot thickened one muggy evening at the Springfield Numismatic Society's monthly gathering. A bespectacled postal clerk named Edna Pierce presented a freshly discovered double die. Under fluorescent tubes her coin gleamed bright mint red, every doubled element crisp like twin engravings. Gasps circled the tables. A collector in horn-rimmed glasses blurted, "MS-63 at least." That night Jerry realized the ceiling of value sat far higher than his Pennies tin-top hiding place. He also realized competition would soon intensify. Through the 60s, as Beatlemania surged and Apollo rockets chased lunar dreams, the 1955 double die gained mythic status. Coin publications dubbed it the King of Lincoln Cents. In 1965, when clad coinage replaced silver, collectors dove into minor varieties seeking refuge, and the 55 DDOs starred in every price guide. Jerry's penny insured now for $600 traveled with him when he moved to Providence. Stashed inside a hollowed Bible on the mantle. A pivotal twist arrived in 1974. The respected firm Stax organized an auction featuring the Norwood collection, rumored to contain the finest known 1955 double die in blazing MS-65. The catalog photo mesmerized bidders. Sharply doubled letters, copper luster like sunset on polished brass. When the gavel fell at $1,600, headlines followed. Regional papers marveled, penny fetches fortune. Jerry clipped every article, hard drumming with vindication. He vowed to have his coin reevaluated. Postal delays and grading backlogs dragged months, but when the slab returned, the new designation read MS-62RB. Surface preservation better than first thought, enough to jolt its insurance value over $2,000. Jerry, now married with a toddler, calculated down payments and college funds each time he cradled the plastic holder. Yet he still couldn't sell. The penny had become an heirloom of luck and grit. Meanwhile, counterfeiters entered the stage. Basement chemists etched fake doubles, while press operators in the Caribbean struck die-altered replicas. Grading services tightened authentication. Reputable dealers insisted on slabs. This danger perversely boosted genuine coins' rarity, reaffirmed by fear. By 1981, high-grade examples breached $5,000. By 1988, the apex Euro bullion craze, an MS-65 red hammered at $24,000. The figure circulated on evening news, prompting grandparents to upturn cookie tins nationwide. But every saga needs a revelation. It came courtesy of archivist Lena Vasquez, hired in 1995 by the National Numismatic Archive to index decades of mint correspondence. Deep inside a mislabeled folio, she discovered carbon copies of telegrams sent between Philadelphia Superintendent Sidney Schofield and Treasury auditors dated October 4 to 5, 1955. The messages referenced abnormal die doubling incident, press number 44, and ordered immediate die destruction. Attached was a crate shipping manifest listing one working die, Class 2 offset, scheduled for steel scrap. Schofield's scribbled margin note read, "If error reached distribution, retrieval impossible, advise stand down." Until Lena's find, historians assumed the mint never documented the slip. Her discovery confirmed not only internal panic but also that only a single die produced the infamous cents, anchoring survivor estimates firmly around 24,000, few relative to $500 million cents struck that year. Publication of the telegrams in the Numismatic Chronicle reinvigorated the market. Prices surged again. An MS-64RD fetched $48,300 at a heritage sale in 1999. The same grade doubled by 2006. Jerry, now graying, attended that auction incognito, curiosity outweighing caution. Watching frantic paddle raises, he felt equal parts pride and disbelief. The cent he'd found beneath diner neon now rivaled classic gold in value. One October morning in 2011, while organizing papers for retirement, Jerry finally resolved to part with his coin. Grandchildren's tuition loomed, and sentiment couldn't trump necessity. He contacted Heritage, who arranged imaging, provenance notes, and lot placement in their January signature auction. The listing highlighted Jerry's 53-year stewardship, a real-life thread connecting working-class America to numismatic legend. Pre-sale estimates whispered $75,000 to $90,000, but no one could predict final hammer. Auction night, velvet-draped stage, spotlights glinting off acrylic displays. Bidding opened at $50,000. Leaping in $5,000 stride 65, 70, 80. Jerry, seated beside his daughter, clenched damp palms. The room crackled with restless whispers. At $95,000, 2 floor bidders remained. Phone agents murmured into headsets. In the quiet hum of 1956, when the United States was caught between the shadows of a recent war and the booming promise of post-war prosperity, coins were more than just currency. They were silent witnesses to an evolving nation. The weak penny, still bearing the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln and framed by a pair of symbolic wheat ears on its reverse, stood as a testament to American resilience. That year, the Philadelphia and Denver Mints produced millions of these copper cents, never suspecting that hidden among the ordinary were a few misstrikes that would rewrite the coin's legacy. No grand announcement ever accompanied their minting. No headlines blared of a monumental error. Instead, the copper slipped through the presses, unnoticed and unremarkable at least at first. The coins were supposed to be flawless, bearing the clean and deliberate marks of a nation well-versed in minting excellence. Yet something slipped. Something small enough to escape detection but large enough to ripple through decades. Years later, tucked into a modest wooden box, buried beneath piles of pennies sorted by dates and mint marks, a collector named Harold Langley would stumble upon what appeared, at first glance, to be just another 1956 wheat penny. He had been combing through thousands, fingers blackened with age and copper, eyes tired but determined. He wasn't seeking treasure. He was hunting anomalies, anything that broke the rhythm of routine. This particular coin caught the light in a curious way. Not brighter, not shinier, but doubled. The letters of Liberty and the phrase, "In God We Trust," looked ever so slightly echoed, as if someone had gently nudged the die mid-strike. Harold leaned closer, magnifier in hand, his pulse beginning to stir. It wasn't the usual wear or shadow. It was something far more intentional, more accidental. The doubling was clearest in Liberty and 1956, and one seen could not be unseen. Harold knew of the infamous 1955 double die cent, a mistake so profound it had become legend among numismatists. But this was 1956. No known errors of this type had been recorded. At least, not widely. Harold didn't sleep that night. The coin rested on his desk, its subtle flaw growing heavier with each passing hour. He reached out to trusted fellow collectors, then cautiously to coin grading services. Submitting the penny was like sending a piece of himself into the void, but it returned certified. Not just genuine, but a double die obverse. A rare variant. The implications stunned him. The numismatic world responded slowly. Unlike the 1955 error, which had been discovered in rolls directly from banks, the 1956 double die wasn't part of a known batch. It wasn't widely reported. It emerged as an anomaly of an anomaly. Scarcity, in this case, became a double-edged sword. There were no stories of kids finding them in pocket change. There were no boxes filled with errors. There was only speculation, but scarcity also meant value, provided the right collectors were paying attention. Initially, the penny's worth barely tickled the $100 mark. After all, it wasn't in textbooks. Auction houses hadn't yet clutched it to their chests. But whispers grew. Articles emerged. And when a second specimen surfaced, it sold quietly for $450. A few years later, a third changed hands in a private sale for more than $1,000. The market had begun to pulse. What made this coin so curious wasn't just the doubling, though it was crisp and undeniable. It was the timing. 1956 was a year where the U.S. Mint had exercised tighter control, having been burned the previous year by the 1955 blunder. That such an error could slip through again in the very next cycle suggested either a recurrence of negligence or the limitations of human oversight. Either way, it felt almost conspiratorial. The coin's surfaces often bore a telltale satin sheen, indicative of early die states. This suggested that the doubling occurred early in the life of a specific die pair, possibly caught and destroyed before many coins escaped. Some experts speculated that no more than a few dozen examples could exist, scattered like forgotten relics in old collections or jars of change lost in attics. By the mid-1980s, the coin had attracted a small cult following. Numismatic forums, still in their infancy, buzzed with rumors. A dealer in Ohio claimed to have found one embedded in a bulk lot from an estate. Another was allegedly spotted at a coin show in San Francisco, but vanished before anyone could confirm it. The legend built itself. By the 1990s, the price surged. One certified MS-64 example fetched over $4,000 at a niche auction. Bidders were cautious, but intrigued. Unlike more common errors that flooded the market and diluted themselves, the 1956 double die stayed aloof, unbothered by abundance. And then came the twist. In 2003, an archivist working in the backroom of a shuttered numismatic shop in Baltimore unearthed a logbook dated 1956 from the Philadelphia Mint. Scribbled in pencil beside routine notations were several entries marked "Die rotation adjustment" and "Press halt for die pair B42." The notations didn't clarify much, but the timing aligned. Even more compelling was a blurred photo stapled beside it, an internal shot of a double die impression used for in-house training. It looked remarkably similar to Harold's coin. The implications set the collecting world ablaze. If the Mint had documented it, even unofficially, then this wasn't just a random flaw. It was a traceable mistake, one acknowledged behind closed doors, but never publicly addressed. And more importantly, it suggested the Mint may have actively tried to suppress its emergence by destroying the dies early. Suddenly, Harold's coin wasn't just a rare double die. It was part of a hidden story, a nearly lost chapter of U.S. Mint history. Collectors scrambled to re-examine their 1956 cents. Dozens of hopefuls flooded grading services. Yet only a handful were confirmed. By 2010, only 7 verified examples existed. The highest graded 1MS66 red sold for $17,200 in a dramatic bidding war that stunned even seasoned dealers. But rarity was only one thread of its allure. The coin became a symbol, a whisper from a time when machinery and man shared an uneasy alliance. When one small vibration, one misaligned setup, could birth something extraordinary. Harold, now older and semi-retired, often reflected on how that one coin altered his path. He never set out to make history. But the copper disc with its doubled whispers did just that. He later discovered that the die pair responsible had been replaced within weeks of use. Its limited run curtailed before the flaw could propagate. No one knows exactly how many 1956 double dies are left to be discovered. Each year, another story emerges. A flea market find, a passed-down collection, a child sorting change for fun. Some are false alarms, mere shadows of doubling, mechanical or optical illusions. But once in a while, the real thing appears, and the world of numismatics holds its breath. Today, the 1956 double die wheat penny occupies a peculiar place. It isn't as famed as its 1955 predecessor. It doesn't have the media coverage or the folklore. But for those who know, it is a masterpiece of chance. An echo of an era meant to be silenced, but that found its voice decades later. Even now, there's talk of more variations. Some claim to have found slight repunching in the mint mark of Denver minted 1956 D pennies, though consensus hasn't crystallized. Theories abound. What if more double dies exist, still waiting? What if Harold's find was just the beginning, not the end? The coin continues to be studied. Technology has allowed better imaging, detailed die tracking, and metallurgical analysis. Each confirmed example deepens the mystery. No definitive tally exists. No final chapter has been written. And so, the search continues. Not in grand bank vaults or auction houses, but in the hands of the curious. In rolls of coins purchased on a whim. In dusty boxes unearthed in basements. Because the 1956 double die isn't just about the money or the metal. It's about the possibility. The chance that, hidden in plain sight, something exceptional still waits to be found. A penny, yes. But in its copper depths, a story too rich to be measured in cents alone.